Hello, everybody. This is official Dave Travels in Time, the new name of this channel. How is everyone? Today is Saturday. So today I'm going to be talking about the history of witches and witchcraft. So that is the topic of the stream today. And I haven't heard it all from Sci-Fi. I hope he's all right. So I'm going to start this off and read through, and then we'll get this going. Hope everyone is doing well. I definitely like this name better than my previous name. So, this is going to be a Halloween stream. That's why I want to do the real history of witchcraft and witches. So, contemporary cultures that believe in magic and the supernatural often believe in witchcraft. Anthropologists have applied the term witchcraft to similar beliefs and occult practices described by many non-European cultures and cultures that have adopted the English language. We often call these practices witchcraft as well. As with the cunning folk in Europe, indigenous communities that believe in the existence of witchcraft define witches as the opposite of their healers and medicine people who are sought out for protection against witches and witchcraft. Modern witch hunting is found in parts of Africa and Asia. A theory that witchcraft was a survival of a European pagan religion, the witch cult hypothesis, gained popularity in the early 20th century, but has since been discredited. So actually, I'll share my screen here. This is fun reading about this stuff. Let me do this. Share screen here. I'll let him know I'm going live too. Right now, history of witches and witchcraft. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So you can see what I'm reading. Okay, I think I'm shared. Yes. What? Yes. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is getting very fun and interesting. Witchcraft traditionally means the use of magic or supernatural powers to harm others. A practitioner is a witch in medieval and early modern Europe, where the term originated. Accused witches were usually women who were believed to attack their own community and often to have communed with evil beings. Yes. Yes, that's the common stereotype. It was thought witchcraft could be thwarted by protective magic or counter magic, which could be provided by cunning folk or folk healers. Suspected witches were also intimidated, banished, attacked, or killed. Often they would be formally prosecuted and punished if found guilty or simply believed to be guilty. European witch hunters and witch trials in the early modern period led to tens of thousands of executions. Yes, the famous witch hunts and witch trials. In some regards, many of those accused of witchcraft were folk healers or midwives. European beliefs in witchcraft gradually dwindled during and after the Age of Enlightenment. Contemporary cultures that believe in magic and the supernatural often believe in witchcraft. Anthropologists have applied the term witchcraft to similar beliefs and occults, practices described by many non-European cultures and cultures that have adopted the English language. We often call these practices witchcraft as well. As with the cunning folk in Europe, indigenous communities that believe in the existence of witchcraft define witches as the opposite of their healers and medicine people who are shot out for protection against witches and witchcraft. Modern witch hunting is also found in parts of Africa and Asia. A theory that witchcraft was a survival of a European pagan religion, the witch cult hypothesis gained popularity in the early 20th century, but has since been discredited. In contemporary Western culture, most notably since the growth of Wicca from the 1950s, some modern pagans and New Ages self-identify as witches and use the term witchcraft for their self-help healing and divination rituals. The concept of witchcraft and the belief in its existence have persisted throughout recorded history and has been found at various times and in many forms among cultures worldwide and continues to have an important role in some cultures today. Most societies have believed in and feared an ability by some individuals to cause supernatural harm and misfortune to others. This may come from mankind's tendency to want to assign occurrences of remarkable good or bad luck to agency, either human or superhuman. Witchcraft is seen by historians and anthropologists as one ideology for explaining misfortune, which has manifested in diverse ways. Some cultures have feared witchcraft much less than others because they instead believe the strange misfortunes was usually caused by gods, spirits, demons, or fairies, or by other humans who have unwittingly cast the evil eye. Ronald Hutton. Actually, all right, so where was I? Yes. But the evil eye. So Ronald Hutton outlined 5 key characteristics ascribed to witches and witchcraft by most cultures that believe in the concept. Traditionally, witchcraft was believed to be the use of magic to cause harm or misfortune to others. It was used by the witch against their own community. It was seen as immoral and often thought to involve communion with evil beings. Powers of witchcraft were believed to have been acquired through inheritance or initiation, and witchcraft could be thwarted by defensive magic, persuasion, intimidation, or physical punishment of the alleged witch. I'm continuing, guys. Just doing that real quick. All right. Where was I? Historically, the predominant concept of witchcraft in the Western world derives from Old Testament laws against witchcraft. And entered the mainstream when belief in witchcraft gained church approval in the early modern period. It is theosophical conflict between good and evil, where witchcraft was generally evil and often, yes, associated with the devil and devil worship. Yep, know about that. This culminated in deaths, torture, and scapegoating, casting blame for misfortune, and many years of large-scale witch trials, yep, and witch hunts, especially in Protestant Europe, yep, before largely ceasing during the European Age of Enlightenment. Christian views in the modern day are diverse and cover the gamut of views from intense belief in opposition especially by Christian fundamentalists who non-belief and even approval in some churches. From the mid-20th century, witchcraft, sometimes called contemporary witchcraft, to clearly distinguish it from older beliefs, became the name of a branch of modern paganism. Paganism. It is most notably practiced in the Wiccan and modern witchcraft traditions and is no longer practiced in secrecy. This is true. The Western mainstream Christian view is far from the only societal perspective about witchcraft. Many cultures worldwide continue to have widespread practices and cultural beliefs that are loosely translated into English as witchcraft. Although the English translation makes a great deal of diversity in their forms, magical beliefs, practices, and place in their societies. During the age of colonialism, many cultures across the globe were exposed to the modern Western world via colonialism, usually accompanied and often preceded by intensive Christian missionary activity, see Christianization, and these culture beliefs that are related to witchcraft and magic were influenced by the prevailing Western concepts of the time. Witch hunt, scapegoating, killing, and shunning of suspected witches still occur in the modern era. Suspicion of modern medicine due to beliefs about illness being due to witchcraft also continues in many countries to this day with serious healthcare consequences. HIV, AIDS, Ebola virus disease, and two examples of often lethal infectious disease epidemics whose medical care and containment have been severely hampered by the regional beliefs in witchcraft. Other severe medical conditions whose treatment is hampered this way can include tuberculosis, leprosy, epilepsy, and the common severe bacterial burley ulcer. Ugh, that is nasty. Okay, now we're on to etymology and definitions. All right. The word is over 1,000 years old. Old English formed the compound Witchcraft from Wicca, which was also spelled Wicca or Wicca in Old English, and was originally masculine. Folk etymologies link witchcraft to the English words wit, wise, wisdom, Germanic root, white, wait, wit, Indo-European root. So craft of the wise. The word witch in the English language is used, Germanic language is used generally for women. Another language such as Neo-Latin languages evolved from Latin. The words can be translated as bruxa in Portuguese, brua, in Spanish, sorcere, in French, and strega in Italian. In these languages, these words have masculine inflected counterparts with the same etymology origin being respectively bruxo, Portuguese, brujo, Spanish, sorcier, French, and strigon, Italian. When translated to English, the preferred translation by Anglophones is wizard, or less commonly, of course, warlock. In anthropological terminology, witches differ from sorceresses in that they don't use physical tools or actions to curse. Their maleficium is perceived as extended from some intangible inner quality, and one may be unaware of being a witch or may have been convinced of their nature by the suggestion of others. This definition was pioneered in a study of Central African magical beliefs by E. Evans Pritchard, who cautioned that it may not correspond with normal English usage. Historians of European witchcraft have found the anthropological definition difficult to apply to European witchcraft, where witches could equally use or be accused of using physical techniques, as well as some who I really had attempted to cause harm by the thought alone. Isn't that interesting? So it's almost like ESP. Use the mind to cause harm. That's interesting. Where belief in malicious magic practices exist, practitioners are typically forbidden by law, as well as hated and feared by the general populace, while beneficial magic is tolerated or even accepted wholesale by the people, even if the Orthodox establishment opposes it. So isn't that interesting? Probably the best known characteristic of a witch is her ability to cast a spell. Oh, yeah. Set of words, a formula, a verse, a ritual, or a combination of these employed to do magic. Spells traditionally were cast by many methods, such as by the inscription of runes or sigils, or an object to give the object magical powers, by the emulation or binding of a wax or clay image of a person to affect them magically. Yeah. By the recital of incantations, by the performance of physical rituals, by the employment of magical herbs as amulets or potions. By gazing at mirrors, swords, or other specula for purposes of divination, and by many other means. Oh, we're going to Necronomicon now. Necromancy. Conjuring the dead. Strictly speaking, necromancy is the practice of conjuring spirits of the dead for divination or prophecy, although the term has been applied to raising the dead or for other purposes. The biblical Witch of Endor, heard about Witch of Endor before, performed it, Samuel, 28th chapter, and it is among the witchcraft practice condemned by Elfric of Einsam. Witches still go to crossroads and to heathen burials with their delusive magic and call to the devil, and he comes to them in the likeness of the man that is buried there, as if he arises from the dead. Hello, Lewis. Welcome. I love witches. Nice. Yeah, this is fun talking about witches. Yeah, I definitely have a great deal of respect for them. I actually know a couple people that practice it. Yeah, it's fun. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Here we go to the White Witches in Britain and Europe. Traditionally, the term witch and witchcraft had negative connotations. Most societies that have believed in harmful witchcraft or black magic have also believed in helpful or white magic. In these societies, practitioners of helpful magic provided services such as breaking the effects of witchcraft, healing, divination, finding lost or stolen goods, and love of magic. In Britain, they were commonly known as the cunning folk or wise people. Alan McFarlane writes, there were a number of interchangeable terms for these practitioners. White, good, or in binding witches, blessers, wizards, sorcerers, however, cunning men and wise men were the most frequent. Ronald Hutton prefers the term service magicians. Often these people are involved in identifying the alleged witches. Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Hope you're doing good. Hostile churchmen sometimes branded any magic workers witches as a way of smearing them. Englishman Reginald Scott, who sought to disprove witchcraft and magic, wrote in the Discovery of Witchcraft 1584. At this stage, it's indifferent to say in the English tongue, she is a witch or she is a wise woman. Folk magicians throughout Europe were often viewed ambivalently by communities and were considered as capable of harming as of healing, which could lead to their being accused as witches in the negative sense. Many English witches convicted of consorting with demons may have been cunning folk whose supposed fairy familiars have been demonized. Many French Gavin-Garcias, diviner healers, were accused of witchcraft. Over half the accused witches in Hungary seem to have been the healers, and the vast majority of Finland's accused witches were folk healers. Hutton, however, says that service magicians were sometimes denounced as witches, but seem to have made up a minority of the accused in any area studied. Thwarting witchcraft. Societies that believed in witchcraft also believed it could be thwarted in various ways. One common use was to use protective magic or counter magic, of which the cunning folk were experts. This included charms and talismans and amulets. Anti-witch marks, witch balls, and burying objects such as horse skulls inside the walls of buildings. Other believed cure for bewitchment was to persuade or force the alleged witch to lift their spell. Often people would attempt to thwart the witchcraft by physically punishing the alleged witches, such as by banishing, wounding, torturing, or killing them. In most societies, however, a formal legal remedy was preferred to this sort of private action, whereby the alleged witch would be prosecuted and then formally punished if found guilty. This often resulted in an execution. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah. All right. This will be interesting. The accusations of witchcraft. Yes, this is where we go into the witch trials and all this stuff. Eva Pope writes, the reasons for accusations of witchcraft falls into 4 personal categories. A person was caught in the act of positive or negative sorcery. 2, a well-meaning sorcerer or healer lost their clients or their authorities' trust. 3, a person did nothing more than gain the enmity of their neighbors. 4, a person was reputed to be a witch and surrounded with an aura of witch beliefs or occultism. C identifies 3 kinds of witch in popular belief: the neighborhood witch or social witch, a witch who curses a neighbor following some dispute. 2, the magical or sorcerer witch, either a professional healer, sorcerer, seer, midwife, or a person who has through magic increased her fortune to the perceived detriment of a neighboring household due to neighborhood or community rivalries and the ambiguity between positive and negative magic. Such individuals can become branded as witches. The supernatural or night witch portrayed in court narratives as a demon appearing in visions and dreams. Neighbor witches are the product of neighborhood tensions and are found only in village communities where the inhabitants largely rely on each other. Such accusations follow the breaking of such societal norm. Social norms, such as the failure to return a borrowed item and any person part of the normal social exchange, could potentially fall under suspicion. Claims of sorcerer, witches, and supernatural witches could arrive out of social tensions, but not exclusively. The supernatural wits often had nothing to do with communal conflict, but expressed tensions between the human and supernatural worlds. And in Eastern and Southwestern Europe, such supernatural witches became an ideology examining calamities that befell whole communities. The historian Norman Gavitz has written, the medical arts played a significant and sometimes pivotal role in the witchcraft controversies of 17th century New England. Not only were physicians and surgeons the principal professional arbiters for determining nature versus preternatural signs and symptoms of disease, they occupied key legislative, judicial, and ministerial roles relating to witchcraft proceedings. 46 male physicians, and surgeons, and apothecaries are named in court transcripts or other contemporary source materials relating to New England witchcraft. These practitioners served on coroner's inquests, performed autopsies, took testimony, issued rites, wrote letters, or committed people to prison, in addition to diagnosing and treating the patients. And the next topic of this is the European witch hunts and the witch trials, which I was mentioning earlier. I want to go into that. Yes, in Christianity, know this, sorcery came to be associated with heresy and apostasy and to be viewed as evil. Among the Catholics, Protestants, and secular leadership of the European late medieval, early modern period, fears about witchcraft rose to fever pitch and sometimes led to large-scale witch hunts. And there's a little diagram right there. Witches are apprehended, examined. The key century was the 15th. Yep. That's right. 15th century, which saw a dramatic rise in awareness and terror of witchcraft, culminating in the publication of the Maleficarum, prepared by such fanatical popular preachers as Bernardino of Siena. Total tens or hundreds of thousands of people were executed. Yeah, it was awful. And others were imprisoned, tortured, banished, and had lands and possessions confiscated. Yeah, pretty evil, messed up stuff. The majority of these accused were women, though in some regions the majority were men. Yikes. In early modern Scots, the word warlock came to be used as the male equivalent of a witch. Yep. Which can be male or female, but is used predominantly for females. Yep. The Maleficarum, Latin for Hammer of the Witches, was a witch hunting manual written in 1486 by two German monks, Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Sprenger. It was used by both Catholics and Protestants for several hundred years, outlining how to identify what makes a woman more likely than a man to be a witch, how to put a witch on trial, and how to punish a witch. The book defines a witch as evil and typically female. The book became the handbook for secular courts throughout Renaissance Europe, but was not used by the Inquisition, which often cautioned against relying on the work. It is likely that this caused witch mania to become so widespread. It was the most sold book in Europe for over 100 years after the Bible. Wow. European witch trials reached their peak in the early 17th century, after which popular sentiment began to turn against the practice. Frederick Spee's book, Cautio Criminalis, published in 1631, argued the witch trials were largely unreliable and immoral. In 1682, King Louis XVI prohibited further witch trials in France. In 1736, Great Britain formally ended witch trials with the passage of the Witchcraft Act. Now we go on to modern witch hunts. Take my throat a break for a second. All right. Belief in witchcraft continues to be present today in some societies, and accusations of witchcraft are the trigger for serious forms of violence, including murder. Such incidents are common in countries such as Burkina Faso, Ghana, India, Kenya, Malawi, Nepal, and Tanzania. Or Tanzania. You could say it either way. Accusations of witchcraft are sometimes linked to personal disputes, jealousy, and conflicts between neighbors or family members or land or inheritance. That's good if you want to stream that. Accusations of witchcraft are sometimes linked to personal disputes, jealousy, conflicts between neighbors or family members over land or inheritance. Witchcraft-related violence is often discussed as a serious issue in the broader context of violence against women. Tanzania, about 500 old women are murdered each year. Following accusations of witchcraft or accusations of being a witch. Apart from extrajudicial violence, state-sanctioned violence also occurs in some jurisdictions. For instance, Saudi Arabia, practicing witchcraft and sorcery is a crime punishable by death. And the country has recently executed people for this crime in 2011, 2012, and 2014. Children who live in some regions of the world, such as parts of Africa, are also vulnerable to violence that is related to witchcraft accusations. Such incidents have also occurred in immigration communities in the UK, including the much publicized case of the murder of Victoria Climby. Okay, Wicca. Here we go. During the 20th century, interest in witchcraft in English-speaking and European countries began to increase, inspired particularly by Margaret Murray's theory of a pan-European witch cult, originally published in 1921, since discredited by further careful historical research. Its interest was intensified, however, by Gerald Gardner's claim in 1954 in Witchcraft Today that a form of witchcraft still existed in England. The truth of Gardner's claim is now disputed, too. Truth of Gardner's claim is now disputed too. That's where it was. The first neo-pagan groups to publicly appear during the 1950s and 60s were Gerald Gardner's Brickenwood Coven and Roy Bower's Clan of Tubal Cain. They operated as initiatory secret societies. Other individual practitioners, writers such as Paul Hewson, also claimed inheritance to surviving traditions of the witchcraft. Wicca that Gardner initially taught was a witchcraft religion having a lot in common with Margaret Meary's hypothetically posited cult of the 1920s. Indeed, Murray wrote an introduction to Gardner's Witchcraft Day and ethic, putting her stamp of approval on it. These Wiccan witches do not adhere to the more common definitions of witchcraft and generally define their practices as a type of positive magic. Various forms of Wicca are now practiced as a religion of an initiatory secret society nature with positive ethical principles organized into autonomous covens and led by a high priesthood. There is also a large eclectic Wiccan movement of individuals and groups who share key Wiccan beliefs. But have no initiatory connection or affiliation with typical traditional Wicca. Okay. There's also a large eclectic Wiccan movement of individuals and groups who share key Wiccan beliefs but have no initiatory connection or affiliation with traditional Wicca. Wiccan writings and the ritual show borrowings from a number of sources, including 19th to 20th century ceremonial magic, the medieval grimoire known as the Key of Solomon, Esther Crowley's Ordeal, Tempor Orientis, and pre-Christian religions. A survey published in November 2000 cited just over 200,000 people who reported practicing Wicca in the United States. Wiccan and Neo-Wiccan literature has been described as aiding the empowerment of young women through its lively portrayal of female protagonists. Part of the recent growth in neo-pagan religions have been attributed to the strong media presence of fictional pop culture works such as Charmed, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and of course the Harry Potter series, with their depictions of positive witchcraft, which differs from the historical, traditional, and indigenous definitions. Based on a mass media case study done, Mass Media and Religious Identity, a case study of young witches. And the result of the case study, it was stated that reasons many young people are choosing to self-identify as witches and belong to groups they define as practicing witchcraft is diverse. However, the use of pop culture witchcraft in various media platforms can be the spark of interest for young people to see themselves as witches. Widespread accessibility to related material through internet media such as chat rooms and forums is also thought to be driving this development, which is dependent on one's accessibility to those media resources and material to influence their thoughts and views on religion. Wiccan beliefs or pop culture variations thereof are often considered to be adherents to be compatible with liberal ideas such as the Green Movement, particularly with some varieties of feminism, by providing young women with what they see as a means for self-empowerment, control of their own lives, and potentially a way of influencing the world around them. This is the case particularly in North America due to the strong presence of feminist ideals in some branches of the neo-pagan communities and the long traditional women-led and women-only-led groups such as Wicca. 2002 study, Enchanted Feminism, the Reclaiming Witches of San Francisco, suggests that some branches of Wicca include influential members of the second wave of feminism, which has also been redefined as a religious movement. Well, now we go on to traditional witchcraft. Traditional witchcraft is a term used to refer to a variety of contemporary forms of witchcraft. Pagan study scholar Ethan Doyle White described it as a broad movement of aligned magical religious groups who rejected any relation to Gardnerism and the wider Wiccan movement, claiming older, more traditional roots. Although typically united by a shared aesthetic rooted in European folklore, the traditional craft contains within its ranks a rich and varied array of occult groups, from those who follow a contemporary pagan path is suspiciously similar to Wicca to those who adhere to Luciferianism. According to British traditional witch Michael Howard, the term refers to a non-Gardnerian non-Alexandrian, non-Wiccan, or pre-modern form of the craft. Another definition was offered by Daniel A. Scholk, current master of the Cultus Sabata, where he proclaimed the traditional witchcraft refers to a coterie of initiatory lineage of ritual magic, spellcraft, and devotional mysticism. Some forms of traditional witchcraft are the fairy tradition, Cochrane's craft, and the sabbatic craft. Stringtheria. Modern Stringtheria closely resembles Charles Loren's controversial late 19th century account of a surviving Italian religion of witchcraft, worshipping the goddess Diana, her brother Dionysus, Lucifer, and their daughter Eridia. Leland's witches do not see Lucifer as the evil Satan the Christians see, but a benevolent god of the sun. Benevolent god of the sun, excuse me. Benevolent. The ritual form of contemporary Stringtheria is roughly similar to that of other neo-pagan witchcraft religions such as Wicca, and the pentagram is the most common symbol of religious identity. Yeah, pentagram. That's have some mysticism. Okay. That's Stringtheria. Demonic associations in general may sometimes implicate witchcraft with the devil, as conceived variously across different cultures and religious traditions. The character of Satan influenced all Abrahamic religions and acted as witchcraft were routinely associated with Satanism, sometimes under the guise of Lucifer, a more notable characterization developed as a rebellious counterpart to Christ. In Europe, after the Enlightenment, influential works such as Milton's Paradise Lost were described anew by Romantics, suggesting the biblical Satan as an allegory representing Christ of faith, individualism, free will, wisdom, and spiritual enlightenment. In the 20th century, other works presented Satan in less negative light, such as Letters from the Earth. The 1933 book, The God of the Witches by Margaret Murray, influenced Herbert Arthur Sloane, who connected the horned god with Satan, Sathanas, and founded the Ophite cultus Satanus in 1948. Sloane also corresponded with his contemporary Gerald Gardner, founder of modern Wicca, and implied that his views of Satan and the horned god were not necessarily in conflict with Gardner's approach. However, he did believe that while gnosis referred to knowledge and Wicca referred to wisdom, modern witches have fallen away from the true knowledge. Instead, it began worshipping an fertility god, a reflection of the creator god. He wrote that the largest existing body of witches who were true Satanists would be the Yazidis. Someone highly recommended the book The Gnostic Religion, and sections of it were sometimes read at ceremonies. Anton LaVey, heard of him, treating Satan not as a literal god, but rather an evocative namesake for the Church of Satan, which he founded in 1966. Yep. The Church incorporates magic in the practice, distinguishes between lesser and greater forms. LaVey published The Complete Witch in 1971. Subsequently published The Satanic Witch, while the Church and other atheistic Satanists use Satan as a symbolic embodiment of certain human traits. There are also theistic Satanists who venerate Satan as a supernatural deity. Temporal Satanism is mainly an American phenomenon, although it began to reach Eastern Europe in the 1990s, around the time of the fall of the Soviet Union. In the 21st century, witchcraft might still be erroneously associated with the ideas of devil worship and potentially conflated with contemporary Satanism. Estimates suggest up to 100,000 Satanists worldwide in 2006, with twice the number estimated in 1990. Satanic beliefs have been largely permitted as a valid expression of religious belief in the West. Founded in 2013, the Satanic Temple avoids the practice of magic, claiming belief should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. Luciferianism developed on principles of independence and human progression, a symbol of enlightenment. Madeline Montauban was an English witch who adhered to the veneration of Lucifer Lumiel, whom she considered a benevolent angelic being who had aided humanity's development. Within her order, she emphasized that her followers discover their own personal relationship with the angelic beings, including Lumiel. Although initially seeming favorable to Gerald Gardner, by the mid-1960s, she had become hostile towards him and his gardening tradition, considering to be the dirty old man and sexual pervert. She also expressed hostility to another prominent pagan witch of the period, Charles Gardall, although in the 1960s became friends with the two witches at the forefront of the Alexandrian Wiccan tradition, Alexander Sanders and his wife, Maxine Sanders, who adopted some of her Luciferian angelic practices. Contemporary times, Luciferian witches exist within traditional witchcraft. The beliefs in sorcery and practice seem to have been widespread in the ancient Near East and Nile Valley. All right, and I did the main bit. That's quite a bit of interesting historical facts about witchcraft. Very interesting. They could have taught me more of this at school. That's why you got to do your research yourself. Seriously. Oh, here's a fun one. Witches, Russian witch trials. Want to hear about that? Witchcraft trials frequently occurred in 17th century Russia, although the Great Witch Hunt is believed to have been predominantly Western European phenomenon. However, as the witchcraft trial craze swept across Catholic and Protestant countries during this time, Orthodox Christian Europe indeed partook in the so-called witch hysteria. This involved the persecution of both males and females who were believed to be practicing paganism, herbology, the black art, or a form of sorcery within and or outside their community. Very early on, witchcraft legally fell under the jurisdiction of the ecclesiastical body, the church in Kiev, Rus, and Muscovite Russia. Sources of ecclesiastical witchcraft jurisdiction dates back as early as the second half of the 11th century. One being Vladimir the Great's first edition of the State of Ustav, another being multiple references to the primary chronicle beginning 1024. Although two methods were torture used in the West and the East, Russia implemented a system of fines payable for the crime witchcraft during the 17th century. Thus, even though torture methods in Moscow were on a similar level of harshness as Western Europe methods used, a more civil method was present. The introduction of a collection of trial records appears together by Russian scholar Nikolai Novobost. He argues the Muscovite authorities used the same degree of cruelty and harshness as Western European Catholic and Protestant countries in persecuting witches. By the mid-16th century, the manifestation of paganism, including witchcraft and the black arts, astrology, fortune telling, divination became a serious concern to the Muscovite church and state. Tsar Ivan IV reigned. He lasted from 1547 to 1584. Took this matter to the ecclesiastical court. I was immediately advised that individuals practicing these forms of witchcraft should be excommunicated and given the death penalty. The Ivan IV was a true believer in witchcraft, was deeply convinced that sorcery accounted for the death of his wife, Anastasia, in 1560, which was completely devastating and depressed him, leaving him heartbroken. Stemming from this belief, Ivan IV became deeply concerned with the threat of witchcraft harming his family and feared he was in danger. So during the Operkanina, 1565 to 1572, Ivan IV succeeded in accusing and charging a good number of players with witchcraft whom he did not wish to remain as nobles. Whereas after Ivan IV, specifically during the time of troubles, 1593 to 1613, increased the fear of witchcraft among themselves. Entire royal families was then to lead to further preoccupation with the fear of prominent Muscovite witchcraft trials. After the time of trouble, 17th century Muscovite rulers have frequently investigated witchcraft within their households, laying their groundwork along with previous Tsarist reforms for widespread witchcraft trials during the Muscovite state. Between 1622 and 1791, people were brought to trial for Muscovite courts for witchcraft. Although Russia did partake in the witchcraft craze that swept across the Western Europe, the Muscovite state did not persecute nearly as many people for witchcraft, let alone execute a number of individuals anywhere close to the number executed in the West during the witch hysteria. I can see many art. Albright Durer. Yep, heard of that. Heard of him, yep. Famous artist. Good artwork there. Witch riding backwards on a goat. Oh, allergies. Excuse me. Nose allergies. One of the first individuals to regularly depict witches after the witch craze of the medieval periods were Albright Durer, a German Renaissance artist. His famous 1497 engraving, The Four Witches, portrays four physically attractive and seductive nude witches. Their supernatural identities are emphasized by the skulls and bones lying at their feet, as the devil discreetly peering at them from the left. The women's sensuous presentation speaks to the overtly sexual nature they were attached to in the early modern Europe. Moreover, this attractiveness was perceived as a danger to ordinary men who they could seduce and tempt into their sinful world. Some scholars interpret this piece as utilizing the logic of the modern episcopacy, in which women use their mental powers and bodily seduction to enslave and lead men into a path of eternal damnation, differing from the unnatural depiction of witches that would follow in later Renaissance years. Durer also applied other ideas from the Middle Ages that were commonly associated with witches. Specifically, his art often referred to former 12th to 13th century medieval iconography, addressing the nature of female sorcery in the medieval period. There was a widespread fear of witches, accordingly producing an association of dark, intimidating characteristics with witches, such as cannibalism, which is described as sucking the blood of newborn infants, or described as having the ability to fly, usually on the back of black goats. As the Renaissance period began, these concepts of witchcraft were suppressed, leading to a drastic change in those sorceresses' appearances from sexually explicit beings to the ordinary, typical housewives of this time period. This depiction, known as the Waldensian, which became a cultural phenomenon of early Renaissance art. The term originates from the 12th century monk Peter Waldo, who establishes his own religious sect, which explicitly opposes the luxury and a commodity-influenced lifestyle of the Christian church clergy, and whose sect was excommunicated before being persecuted as practitioners of witchcraft and magic. Subsequent artwork exhibiting witches. Oh, I sent you. Let's see. Oh, I sent you a link. I sent you a link, buddy. I sent you a link on Facebook. Welcome, Badwolf. This is really interesting. See, I wish they would teach. They seriously needed to teach more of this in school. Seriously, man. It's really interesting. That's why you got to do research for yourself. Yep, it's for Halloween. Yep, I decided to do a history of witchcraft and witches for Halloween. That's why I'm doing it today. Oh, and I sent you a link on Facebook, so you're welcome to. If you want to join, come on down. Yeah, I want to have you on. Since I don't know what happened to sci-fi. No idea what happened to that guy. Hope he's alright. Hope he's okay. Clear my throat for a second. That's a lot of reading. It's fun though. I really like reading about this. Yep, StreamYard link's in there. I sent it to you. Pretty sure I sent you. Yep. I'll just wait for you. Clear my throat for a second. It's fun doing something different for a change. I'm always doing sci-fi and comic books. This is nice. Nice change. We know when you're ready. Well, I'll see you on the screen when you click the link here. And I am on the art, which is an art. So I'll wait for you. Let me know when you. Well, I'll know when I see you see your icon here. Yeah, so it's gonna be again. Well, taking a break there for a second from reading. So it's gonna be a Halloween theme for the next couple weeks on this channel. That's the plan for the channel. So just an update. So just be prepared for that. It's going to be the next couple weeks. Going to be a break from sci-fi and comics for a little bit. It'll be talking about some horror stuff, talking some Halloween stuff, Halloween movies, TV shows, all that type of stuff. Because tis the season, since it is October. So next week, I think it'll be, let's see, so I got my job codes on Monday. So I can't do stream on Monday, but I can do it on Wednesday. Oh, Tuesday too. I could technically, because I don't have anybody on Tuesday. Sent you the StreamYard link. So yeah, so Tuesday we're gonna be talking about horror movies. The many different horror movies, starting from the 1920s till now. And we'll ask, what is your favorite horror movie? What is your favorite horror franchise? What's your favorite depiction of Frankenstein? What's your Frankenstein monster? What's your favorite depiction of Dracula? For people watching, welcome everyone. Doing a history of witches and witchcraft today. Anybody that's new joining, I can go back a little bit towards the beginning. I can reread some of this stuff. All right. Oh, wait another minute, then I will continue. And whoever needs me to, I will go back. Go back to the witch trials and all that stuff. Witches were seen, witchcraft was seen as an evil thing in like Catholicism and Protestant. Oh, okay. That's fine. Okay, I understand. We'll carry on. Oh, okay. I understand. All right, so I'll keep reading. All right. So whoever wants me to reread stuff, I can too. Whoever's in, let me know. But basically, right now I am on the witches and art part of the discussion. So I'll go back to one of the first individuals to regularly depict witches after the witch craze of the medieval period was Albright Durer, a German Renaissance artist. His famous 1497 engraving, The Four Witches, portrays four physically attractive and seductive nude witches. Their supernatural identities are emphasized by their skulls and bones lying at their feet, as well as the devil discreetly peering at them from their left. The women's sensuous presentation speaks to the overly sexual nature they were attached in early modern Europe. Moreover, this attractiveness was perceived as a danger to ordinary men who they could seduce and tempt into their sinful world. Some scholars interpret this piece as utilizing the logic of the canon episcopi, in which women use their mental powers and bodily seduction to enslave and lead men into a path of eternal damnation, differing from the unattractive depiction of witches that would follow in later Renaissance years and Wizard of Oz, with the Wicked Witch of the West, right? They don't make her look too attractive. Durer also employed other ideas from the Middle Ages that were commonly associated with witches. Specifically, his art often referred to former 12th to 13th century medieval iconography expressing the nature of female sorcerers. In the medieval period, there was a widespread fear of witches, such as cannibalism, which is described as sucking the blood of newborn infants, or described as having the ability to fly, usually on the back of black goats. As the Renaissance period began, these concepts of witchcraft were suppressed, leading to a drastic change in the sorcerers' appearances from sexually explicit beings to the ordinary, typical housewives of this time period. The depiction known as the Waldensian witch began a cultural phenomenon of early Renaissance art. The term originates from the 12th century monk Peter Waldo, who established his own religious sect, which explicitly opposed the luxury commodity influenced lifestyle of the Christian church clergy, and whose sect was excommunicated for being persecuted as practitioners of witchcraft and magic. Subsequent art exhibiting witches tended to be consistently run cultural stereotypes about these women. These stereotypes were usually rooted in early Renaissance religious discourse, specifically the Christian beliefs that an early alliance had taken place between Satan's female minions who conspired to destroy Christendom. Another significant artist whose art consistently depicted witches was Durer's apprentice Hans Baldry Grein, a 15th century German artist. His Koranisgrau woodcut, which is created in 1510, visually encompassed all of the characteristics that were regularly assigned to witches during the Renaissance. Social beliefs label witches as supernatural beings capable of doing great harm, possessing the ability to find as cannibalistic. The urn in witches seem to contain a piece of the human body, which the witches are seen consuming as a source of energy. Meanwhile, their nudity while feasting is recognized and losing to their sexual appetite, and some scholars read the witch riding on the back of a goat demon as representative of their flight-inducing powers. This connection between women's sexual nature and sins were thematic in the pieces of many Renaissance art, especially Christian artists. Due to cultural beliefs which characterize women as overly sexual beings who are less capable, to men of resisting sinful temptation. Fiction and witches in fiction, yeah. Oh yeah, here we go. Span a wide array of characterizations. They're typically, but not always, female, and are typically, yeah, unfortunately, as either villains or mainly villains, sadly, but they can be heroines. The classic fairy tale Hansel and Gretel presents an example of the witch villain figure. The story involves a cannibalistic witch that eventually becomes outwitted by the children. She tries to eat and is burned to death in her own oven. Snow White depicts a murderous, tempting position for its main antagonist. The witch is labeled an evil queen, meets her demise after being forced to dance in red, hot iron shoes. The Six Swans includes a stepmother who magically turns her stepchildren into swans out of spite and jealousy and retaliates in the figure labeled as a witch is typically eventually burned at the stake. Oh gosh. Such examples within the Brothers Grimm, the other famous, not only evidence of the figure of a witch villain, but also exhibits their punishment by injury or violent death. Living Alone, published in 1919, uses the witch heroine as an agent and supporter of female liberation. Stella Benson's novel surrounds the musings of a female witch who functions as an anarchic force in the lives of middle-class Londoners. Her non-harmful magic aims to shake the most downtrodden women out of complacency and normalcy to meet a state of liberation. The importance of such a heroine sheds light on the positive effects associated with magic and witchcraft, a change from the often brutalized and tortured illustrations found in early 19th century literature. Other examples of heroic witches in fictional literature include Glinda, from Wizard of Oz, Seraphina Picella from his Dark Materials, and Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. Yep.
Allergies, man. Man, my nose is sounding. Man, this is fun. Nice change of pace from always doing science fiction. In a way, this is like traveling time because I'm reading the past. It's almost like physically imagining myself being in that time period during these what's going on. It's quite fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Wow. Well, I mean that's pretty much it. Um, just wanted to go a bit, and I learned a few things that I didn't even know. But I wish in school they would have taught us some of this. Yeah, come on, school, get it together. Well, an hour and 11 minutes. I'll probably call this stream to a close pretty soon. I hope you enjoyed, and whoever watches this later, um, hope you enjoy what I had to learn, and it was quite fun reading about the history of witchcraft and witches. Um, yeah, quite a fun, informative feast of knowledge I'm learning here, and it's quite fascinating. And again, like I said, the Halloween theme will continue next week. It's gonna be we're gonna talk about Dracula and Frankenstein's monster. Yeah, the many iterations of those characters. So that'll be a couple of streams next week, since we're going with the horror Halloween theme. I hope everyone who was here enjoyed what I had to learn and read about witches and history, and whoever watches this later, hope you enjoy. And if you like what you see, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Again, I'm not Dave Travels Through Time Channel 2 anymore. My channel is just Official Dave Travels in Time. That's the name of the channel now. So, hope you enjoy. I hope you have a good rest of your Saturday. I hope you take care. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace. And don't forget, if you like what you see, like the video, like the stream, and if you like what like my streams, subscribe to the channel. Bye for now.